Dawson Garcia is the key to the Gophers taking the next step in the Big Ten Conference. Plus, there is another hoops prospect in town this weekend, and we're talking about him today.
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now we're closing this Friday show off with some hoops talk, so sit back, relax. Be sure to follow wherever you get the podcast at Locked On Golden Gophers and head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe so you can join the community. Now, I love the comments that we get on the videos, the good, the bad, the ugly, the constructive criticism and all that. I do have another NBA hat on again today, but I made sure to turn it around for some folks because I know that seeing other logos can sometimes impact frustrations. But besides that, we're here to talk Gophers every day because I love the Gophers, you love the Gophers, and that is what it is. Now, I feel like the Gophers fan base doesn't get enough love, especially when it comes to the history of success that they've had. But I am always here for the passionate Gopher fans, so I always enjoy chopping it up with you guys each and every day. Now, today we're talking Gophers hoops. It's been a minute since we've talked about some Gophers basketball in depth, and today we're going to talk about not only the reason why Dawson Garcia is the key to all next steps of success for the Gophers basketball team, but also a new player, a new transfer prospect that is coming to town this weekend, and what he can bring to the team, as well as what the lineup would look like with him. So that's what we're going to dive into today, kicking it off with some Dawson Garcia talk. Now, like I said, any chance, any success that Minnesota can get and to get out of that Big Ten cellar that they've been in the past 2 years now, it all starts with Dawson Garcia. And the truth is that at his best, Dawson Garcia is a top 5 player in the conference, plain and simple. Now, he's a 3-level scorer. He can defend, he can rebound, he has fair handles if he needs to drive, if he needs to get out of a trap, he can ISO, he can create on his own for those that aren't too familiar with the isolation game. But otherwise, he's strong in the post, strong down on the box, and he can get creative around the block. So I think all of that contributes to him being an all-around player in this conference. Now, he led Minnesota in points and rebounds last year while missing games. Now, if you look at the more advanced analytics and the advanced statistics towards Dawson Garcia in his last season, he was the best on the team when it came to win shares, when it came to offensive win shares, offensive plus minus, and overall plus minus. So he was positively impacting this Gophers team, especially on the offensive front, every single game and at the highest level amongst the team. Now, that might be pretty obvious because he was the best player on the team and he was really showing out. But I feel like we saw similar trends that way with Jamison Battle in 2021, 2022, but then it didn't carry over in 22-23 like we had imagined it would. Now, that could come from sharing the floor with another alpha dog, another top level player, but it felt like Dawson Garcia, he sometimes defaulted to Jamison, or he kind of played outside of his game at times because they were still feeling each other out. And I don't think we're going to have to worry about this as much because Dawson is that guy moving forward. Jamison heads on over to Ohio State, and now the team is Dawson's. Now, yes, there are younger players that will also be heavily involved, like the franchise, Pharrell Payne, but I think overall, Dawson Garcia should really have this fan base ignited because he is truly a special, talented player that doesn't come to Dinkytown too often. Now, we've seen some successes here with Danielle Oturu. We've seen it with Amir Coffey. We've seen it with Marcus Carr in some sorts as of late. But Dawson Garcia, I believe, is a more higher talent all around than all of those players. Now, you look at his holistic game from last year, he's averaging 15.3 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, shot 45.7% from the floor with a true shooting percentage, which is another advanced analytics stat, of 53.4%. Now, what that true shooting percentage does is it takes into account 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and free throw percentage to give you a true shooting percentage of an overall player. So that is a rock solid percentage coming from him there. But if you're looking just at 3-point percentage, he's still at 34.5%, which is good. And now a Gophers team that was one of, if not the absolute worst when it came to free throw shooting, Dawson Garcia was one of the better ones on the team with an average of above 70% from the free throw line. He scored in double digits in 22 of the 25 games he played, and he had 3 double-doubles and 6 games where he was 1 or 2 rebounds away from a double-double, so nearly creeping in on double-digit double-doubles. He had the opportunity and the impact like that for the Gophers. But all of his numbers, they have room to grow. I mean, if you look at his usage, yes, this was the highest usage percentage that he's seen. With Minnesota, he saw a usage percentage of 27.5, where it was really geared towards him. But then you look at his time in UNC, he had a 23.8% usage percentage. And at Marquette, he had a 22% usage percentage. But at those places, especially at Marquette, he was almost more of an efficient scorer and a heavy scorer with his usage. Now, he might not have scored as many points, but that's how effective he was. So if he can bring that effectiveness to a higher usage total, that just means there's more room for him to grow with Minnesota. And if they really scheme this thing around him, I truly think it can get them out of this cellar. I truly do. With the talent that's around, a lot of young talent, a lot of youth, but they have talent nonetheless. As they continue to grow this offseason, push, and they know what to expect from a Big Ten season now. They know what to work out, what to push, what to work for in this upcoming season. So they push, they take that next level, that next step, and then you center it around Dawson Garcia, who basically you let the chains go, you let the reins go. You are ready to give him the keys and let him run this thing. Let it be run through him, more to speak. I think that you can see the next step of the Big Ten for the Gophers getting into maybe the 10th, 9th rated spot in the conference. If we want to get there, it has to go through Dawson at this point as these younger guys step into bigger roles. Now, we saw some things that were really promising at the end of last season, post-to-post rotations and touches between him and Pharrell Payne, and how one of them was always effectively touching the ball each time down the court. That was very effective in multiple spats for the Gophers. Then on top of that, we saw a lot more pick and roll game between Talon Cooper and Dawson Garcia in the very late stages of the season. I'm talking the last couple games and then the Big Ten tournament. It was very nice to see that incorporated, and I had wondered why it had not really been run very much for the majority of the season. So this time around, hopefully the Gophers are running more pick and roll game from the jump and activating that right away with Mike Mitchell Jr. and Dawson Garcia. I think that will be pertinent, and it will be another way to get Dawson involved, but maybe not necessarily always having to have the ball in his hands to be effective. Now, like I said, that pick and roll is going to help. The post-to-post touches are going to help. But Jamison Battle wasn't as effective last season. Now, I still got love for Jamison Battle, even with him going to a conference rival. But he wasn't as effective as what we saw in 2021. But he still drew attention away from Dawson Garcia from the opposing defenses, and he took defensive priorities away from Garcia. Now, until one or multiple players for the Gophers and these young guys can step up next season and make the defense respect them, then I would expect a lot of teams to double up on Dawson Garcia, especially in the post. So Minnesota is going to need to have more confident shooters and knockdown jumpers throughout the beginning stages of the season to make teams respect them and not double down on Dawson and just try to take him away. So guys like Carrington, guys like Joshua Joseph, guys like Cam Christie and Caden Betts stepping in for the first time, they're going to have to knock down the open, easy shots when Dawson has to kick it out. Once you start doing that, you make the defense respect Dawson at a one-on-one level as opposed to easily doubling down on him every single time. Now, like I said, Minnesota is going to have to knock those down with confidence, but overall, Dawson Garcia was top 10 in the conference in scoring. Now, he was number 10 of the 10, so the very last of the top 10, but he also missed 6 games. He missed 6 games total. Now, players number 2, 3, 4, and 5 on that list will not be back in the Big Ten next year. That already pushes him into that top 6 conversation. But you're also talking about number 1, Zach Edey, number 6, Boo Buie, and number 8, Bryce Sensabaugh from Ohio State are all testing the NBA waters this offseason, and they're remaining the availability to come back to the conference. They haven't outright signed with an agent and basically saying we're not coming back whatsoever. They might be able to come back, and they might still take that option to come back, but they'll go through the combine process and see how that goes. Now, if those 3 also leave, that leaves Jameer Young, who is the number 9 scorer, and Dawson Garcia, who is the number 10 scorer, as 2 returning players that could be the top 2 scorers in the conference returning from last season. So that's a lot of shakeup, but it leaves a lot of opportunity for the Gophers to lean into their veteran scoring presence. Now, it wasn't just in scoring that Dawson Garcia was effective. He was 13th in the conference in rebounding as well. So there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity for growth. And there's less awkwardness. There's less unsureness or defaulting to the other alpha on the team in Jamison Battle, who's headed to Ohio State. This should allow for 2 reasons on Garcia being primed for a big year this year. Number 1 is that the offense should focus through him. He should be the centerpiece of this whole thing and how the system should run through him. But number 2 is that he will have the keys. He will have the full reign and have the confidence to know there's no more questions about, do I get it to Jamison? Does he need his looks? Does he need his touches? How are we sharing the floor? No more of that. It starts and it ends with Dawson Garcia as Pharrell Payne, Caden Betts, Joshua Joseph, and the other young guys step up around him. So there is a lot of things to like in that manner if the Gophers can shape out that way. But there's another potential name in town this weekend that will hopefully soon be an addition to the maroon and gold. And who is it and how can they contribute on this roster? That is what is coming up next. First, let's talk about that delicious Built bar that's covered in 100% real chocolate. I've talked about it this week, but I just gotta stress to you, it's so good, folks, and you can pick the flavor that works best for you. You can even just look, you don't have to go on, you don't have to buy right now, but why don't you go over to built.com, check out the flavor options, see what stands out, and maybe, just maybe, you'll want to take a swing at it with that 15% off using promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order over at built.com. And you can head out and over to Walmart or Sam's Club in the pharmacy sections to find it today in a town near you. I encourage you, I urge you to try the Built Bar. It's power-packed with protein. I'm tripping over the P's over here, but it is really good, and I do think you should give it a try over at built.com. Now, Gophers fans, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Golden Gophers and making us your first listen when it comes to Gophers sports on the daily. And thank you to the everydayers that are tapping into this show each and every day. I know that we've been talking a whole lot of football. We're going to work more basketball in. We're going to talk about some things with Eric over at Junior All-Star, and we're going to talk about the Gophers women's basketball team in the upcoming weeks, because I think this is a team the Minnesota needs to start acknowledging now. I think they are going to be a heavy swing in the right direction in this upcoming season. So we'll talk with him on that one. We've also got friend of the show, Ryan Burns, coming on in the very near future, where we'll dive into some football talk. So definitely be sure to hit subscribe, but shout out to all the everydayers that are locked in and commenting each and every day. And if you haven't been commenting because you listen on the audio side, that is A-okay. If you have topic suggestions, if you have thoughts on the shows, feel free to shoot us an email at lockedongoldengopher@gmail.com. I want to make sure you're getting the good details, the good topics that you want to hear covered here on the show. But we're moving on to talk some more hoops and a player who is coming to visit this weekend, and that is none other than Elijah Hawkins. Now, Elijah Hawkins is a point guard. He comes from Howard, HU, but he played in the tournament this last season. He was actually a leader on the team that made it to the NCAA tournament. He's visiting the Gophers this weekend. He led Howard in both scoring and assists this past season, averaging 12.9 points per game, 6 assists per game, and 3.6 rebounds per game. Plus, he averaged 46.6% shooting from deep. So he can knock down the three ball. And for all those sticklers out there, he can shoot the free throws, 77%. So I hope that he comes this way. He could be a welcome addition to this team, and he fills a need that the Gophers absolutely have. Now, he also had similar numbers as a freshman as well. So he was a sophomore last year, was a freshman the year prior, still averaged close to 13 points and almost 6 assists in that year. So he's consistent. He's been getting it done. And Hawkins is not afraid to drive to the cup. He is aggressive when he takes the drive, but he doesn't just stick his head down and end up getting charges drawn on him. He doesn't just stick his head down and miss the open man. No, he's always has his eyes up. He's always has his eyes geared towards the passing lanes. And that's what I loved the most about his film. Now, he's also tough on the defensive end of the court, which should be music to Gophers fans' ears. I know that people get worried about the defensive consistency, and I know Coach Ben Johnson is really looking to start on the defensive end and let it transition to success on the offensive end. Coach Ben Johnson is all about athleticism, length, and playing hard-nosed defense. Elijah Hawkins will give you that hard-nosed defense from the guard position. So overall, I think he's super gritty on that end of the court, and he would be a perfect fit for this team. Now, he's got solid handles, which you love to hear. He has a very quick crossover. He's got some speed to him, and other teams that have reached out to him are teams like Texas, Utah, Seton Hall, Ole Miss, and others. So it's not any of the blue bloods that we're looking at. Maybe Texas had some recent success, but outside of Texas, not a whole lot of huge star-powered schools that we're competing with here. So the Gophers have a realistic chance on this one, especially if he is looking to get heavy minutes and opportunity. The Gophers can offer that full swing and then some. So I think the Gophers are actually in this race. That's positive. The Gophers need to pull out all the stops, and hopefully Coach Ben Johnson and staff can really roll out the red carpet for Hawkins, because I think he would be a very, very fit addition for this team and what they're trying to build with. Now, Elijah Hawkins addresses an immediate need because he is a point guard, and he would be the only player outside of Mike Mitchell Jr., who just came in from the transfer portal, that is really truly a point guard facilitator type that has ball handling skills and doesn't get trapped easily on the full court traps. So I think he is a massive need for this team. But honestly, watching the film, watching the footage, I think him and Elijah Hawkins and Mike Mitchell Jr. could share the court well together. Overall, I think Hawkins is super fast, and I think he overall as an athlete will translate well for the Gophers and for a high major level play for a guy coming from the low majors. Now, like I said, I think him and Mitchell could share the floor well. I think either one of them could play off ball and play the two if they needed to. Both of them are effective shooting from the three-point line, but I think that it gives you more flexibility and versatility as well, which is something that Ben Johnson absolutely wants to play with. So if you're on any social media platforms, definitely go show love to Elijah Hawkins on the socials. And hopefully this time next week, or maybe even 2 weeks from now, we're talking about him as the latest addition to the Golden Gophers. Now, if Hawkins were to come to Dinkytown, how could he fit in this Minnesota lineup? We're going to talk about that to close this show off coming up next. Minnesota Gophers fans, we are talking hoops. We've been talking Dawson Garcia. We talked about Elijah Hawkins, who is coming for a visit this weekend. But how could Hawkins fit with Dawson Garcia and what the Gophers are looking to build to get out of that Big Ten cellar? we're going to wrap up with those quick thoughts and projections on what this team could look like as it currently stands with Hawkins, if he could fit into that rotation. Now, when you're looking at starters, I truly think right away you're looking at Mitchell and you're looking at Hawkins as your 1 and your 2. Now, based on the film I've seen, I would guess that Hawkins would play that 1 true point, and then Mitchell could shoot out to the 2 guard, the combo guard of sorts. But either of them could play that role. And all of that being said, we know that Ben Johnson likes to play a more positionless style of basketball where players can play from different roles, whether it's the 1, the 2, the 3. The more roles they know, it makes it more fluid for them to be able to play that style that he is really shooting for. So you could see both of them bringing the ball up on back-to-back possessions. That's how fluid this could be if it all worked out right. So those two would play at the guard positions. Then I think you got JOJ, Josh Joseph, coming in at the 3. Now, I know he played a lot of 4 last year, but I do think he is going to be more primed to play at the 3 position. I can see an argument for Isaiah Enan here as well, but we're going to lock in Josh Joseph just because he started 24 games last season, and I can see him growing over the summer into a larger role as well. So we've got JOJ at the 3, Pharrell Payne at the 4, and then Dawson Garcia at the 5. I think that's what the starting lineup would look like with these guys in tow. Now, the rotation beyond that is where things could get interesting. I think guard-wise, you're looking at Braden Carrington and you're looking at Cam Christie at the guard positions. Now, you're likely to always have one of Hawkins or Mitchell on the floor with them. So when one of them subs in, they're likely leaving one of those other guards out there to still facilitate and be able to bring the rock up. But overall, I think both of these guards carry a lot of potential scoring on the outsides. Cam Christie can create for himself. Hopefully he can get up to the speed of D1 college basketball pretty quickly, and I think he could play an important role for the Gophers. So those are the 2 guards you'll likely see getting the most minutes. A conglomerate of 4 of them. Maybe we see Caden Betts play a little bit of the 2 as well here and there. But I think your 3s and your 4s are more of the Isaiah Enan, Caden Betts, and Parker Fox, likely running in those 3 to 4s. Then you can move Pharrell Payne to the 5 sometimes when Dawson's off the floor. You've got Jack Wilson who can rotate in here and there, but I don't see him playing a very large role at this point in time. Now, that's likely 10 players seeing a heavy majority of the minutes between the starting 5 we listed, plus Carrington, Christie, Betts, Enan, and Fox. That's 10 players. Now, we haven't really seen a ton of Ben Johnson running 10 players deep before, so that doesn't mean that these 10 players would get a ton of minutes every game. In fact, I think there's going to be game plans that sometimes Betts will play more, sometimes Fox will play more. Sometimes Christie will play more, and it will depend on the matchups, depend on the team we're playing and the style of play they have. I think that's where the minute fluidity starts to shift between those type of players. I think overall you'll probably see Carrington and you'll probably see Enan play a lot of minutes throughout. So that's kind of your true 7, those 2 plus the starting 5. And then you get some run from the younger guys in Betts and Christie and Fox, who can bring high energy minutes from the bench as well. I think that's kind of what you're looking at for a key rotation. Now, like I said, yes, I know Jack Wilson came in from Washington State, doesn't have a lot of stats out there, and I'm not worried about that. But overall, I think he is here more to play a lot of practice minutes against Pharrell Payne, to be a body against him and Dawson Garcia. But also, we saw Pharrell Payne have some troubles with foul trouble last year. Dawson Garcia had some injuries last year, so having another 7-footer, a body in there who can bang in down low, get some boards and clear it out, that's going to be huge. So I think that's where his role fits in. I don't see a ton of major action right away, and until I see him on the floor more, that's kind of where I see him in the rotation as a fairly limited option for the Gophers. So that's what it kind of all looks like, and that could be huge for the Gophers, but it all stems on if we can bring Hawkins in. I think he is a huge piece that this Gophers team absolutely needs to pull out all the stops for. He could be a major piece for the team moving forward and truly help them take a step in the right direction within the conference, and we will keep you posted on any news we hear on him and his commitment. here at Locked On Golden Gophers. That's going to do it for us on today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed some hoops talk. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube and follow wherever you get us at audio platforms, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Pods, you name it. You'll find us at Locked On Golden Gophers. This is Kane Rob signing off. I will see y'all next week. Have a good one. Row the boat. Sky Umag. Go Gophers as always. I'll see you next week.